Looking back on the week that was and forward to the week ahead. It's the Fantasy Football Hustle. Here are your hosts, Brian Drake and Dwain McFarland.
All across the fantasy universe, it's August, it's training camp season. There's a game this week. That means it's time to hustle, baby. What's up? Fantasy Football Hustle, live and in person. Brian Drake, Dwain McFarland, ready to get after it. We're going to do 3 more teams tonight in our projection series, and we're going to talk a little training camp news because everybody is just ready and itching, Dwain, for some football goodness. And we're so happy to be here, so happy to be powered by Pro Football Focus. Dwain, what's up, my friend? How are you?
Man, I'm feeling good. Awesome week at the beach. Listen to lots of good podcasts. We're lining up guests for some of those for the next few weeks. So I'm excited about that. We'll let folks know more. So many good people in the community. And I just had a chance. You know how it gets, Drake. You get busy with life and work and, the family and everything else. And sometimes you don't have a chance to kind of smell the roses and see what everybody else is doing. So I made sure to do that while I was off. Man, not that I didn't know it, but getting a chance to consume some of the work and catch back up on where some of these people are, just so many smart people in the industry. So it was awesome, man. Hanging out at the beach. I was listening to fantasy football, hanging out with the family, grilling steaks, going fishing. And, here I am. But what could be better? Back here with Drake, on the Fantasy Football Hustle.
And the beard is back, which folks in our YouTube chat room are all abuzz about.
Yeah, see, the beard last week, the week before, I get rid of the beard for the beach. I mean, I think I said that on that podcast, but you don't want to come back looking all kind of funky, and I don't want to deal with hot, sweaty face on the beach. So, yeah, I mean, I'm back to looking, 50 instead of 14.
If you ever see our graphics, my buddy who works for the Mets made them for us, and Dwain has a full, huge beard in it. And I remember Dwain telling me one time, he goes, he's like, God, I hate those graphics. I look so stupid.
I do. I look like a fucking woolly mammoth. I'm anyway, sorry. Already dropping F-bombs. What's up?
Yeah, Dwayne's all juiced up tonight, so this is going to be a good one. And I might as well join him with a little pumpkin tonight. This will be fun at almost 9%. So shout out to Mike Clay and John Daigle and Evan Silva and the guys that I send some of this good stuff to from New York. And if you're cracking beers, you're getting into football mode, you got to head over to PFF because, folks, I got a little tip for you. Dwayne's rankings are up on PFF.com right now. I got them pulled up on my screen. I'm checking out Dwayne's rankings. It's kick-ass. Go to PFF.com right now. Use promo code HUSTLE. HUSTLE is the promo code. Hence the name of the show. Again, HUSTLE. So save 25%, PFF.com. We got the complete fantasy football draft guide is up, the player rankings, the projections, the locked articles, the cheat sheets. You don't want to go anywhere else. Dwain, how long did it take you to get those rankings up there? And how glad are you to be, finally done with it?
Well, I'm super excited to have them up, but having them up doesn't really mean anything. This is a constant iterative process. You know how it goes. But, man, I love doing this part of it, Drake. And here's the thing. I'll just say to everybody, look, projections they're key. They're a huge part of my process, but they're not everything. But here's what I say about projections. When you dig in and you do the work and you really study it, it's more about the understanding you get. Right. It's not literally exactly where you have this player projected as right. It's why you feel the way you do about a player. Right. Everything adds up. You're looking at their athletic profile. You're looking at where they fit in the coaching scheme. You're looking at any changes that may have happened, all this stuff. And I mean, people have heard us talk about it before, but it's just, I thought about not doing my projections this season just because everything's so busy with work. A lot of different things going on, all great stuff, nothing complaining, just a lot of different things going on. And we'll have an announcement here, in the next week or so, some cool stuff coming on that front. But I remember calling you, Drake, just, man, maybe I can just lean into this knowledge I have. And you're like, dude, you can do it. It'd be totally fine. And then 2 weeks later, I write you, I send you a text. I can't. I was like, I got to do them. I got to do them. And you know what? It's not just about getting the number. It's about, I really want to understand each team. I want to understand, the players. I want to understand all the dynamics, and I just get so much more comfortable. It doesn't ever mean we're going to be 100% right, but I definitely every year have certain players that I feel really strongly about, and especially looking at them and where they go in ADP. And I think that's really the secret, right, to drafts. I know there's a lot of cool new information out there about how to draft and how to structure, and there's so much cool stuff going on in the industry. But at the end of the day, I still think it comes back to like, where can you get like that true upside for the right value, right? It can't just be upside or bust. Like that's my opinion. There's people that believe differently than me, and I could be wrong on that, but that's my philosophy, and it's worked for me, right? For a long time, and I've adapted over time. It's not like I formulated this process 20 years ago and just said, "Oh, I'm stuck." It's like I've worked on it every single year, and I try to keep up with the trends and all those things. And so this is where that comes from. This is what gives me the conviction for that. And like I said, I can't always be right because look, these are projections. We're not, is all the work we can put in. Weird shit happens, and coaches are humans, players are humans. Like, it's hard to always predict, but I know that I've done everything I can to truly, put my best foot forward. And that's why I love doing the projections, and I can truly say it. And I think people love it. And I appreciate the feedback we get. Because I get a lot of IMs, a lot of different stuff coming at me. And it does seem like, what people like is that, we really do go deep into it, and we try to understand like all the facets, right, that are coming into play. And I still think that matters. I think that that's still hugely important, in fantasy football, and that we can't just, not that they're always right, but sometimes I think it tends to get oversimplified.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We had a big conversation earlier today. Dwain and I talking about just draft upside. That's all there is to do.
And look, I love upside, and I love upside players, but I'm sorry if you tell me all I got to do is go into a draft and draft Jonathan Taylor because he's got upside, and then the next round, all I need to do is draft DK Metcalf, who I love because he's got upside, and the next round I need to grab CeeDee Lamb, the next round I need to grab Kyle Pitts, and the next round I need to draft Jamar Chase. I love all those players, but guess what? Every freaking person in the world can build that team. It's not that easy. And what I don't like is to some extent, and we're going to talk to some really smart people in the next 2, 3, 4 weeks that I don't think have this approach. They have some really cool insights on upside. I think a lot of the context gets lost, like when people grab the sound bites. But I think you can't oversimplify that. Let's think about this. I would ask people in the chat room, dude, I've known this type of fantasy player in my league for 20 years. They draft all that upside and they reach for all of it and they lose, right? So it's not that simple. And I'm not saying that strategy can't work on certain years. I'm not saying that it can't hit for you. And again, we want upside, but it's about being smart about upside. It's like, where do you bet on variance? Where do you bet on, not knowing for sure what's going to happen? What are the appropriate spots in your draft that you do that? And again, that's what the draft plan is all about every year, right? When we put it out, and every year where those positions are and where those spots are in drafts, I think change. I think if you think it's just automatically at certain points every year, I disagree, honestly, with that approach. I think it can be, directionally correct. It's just like analytics in my job that I work in every day with healthcare or whatever the case. Like, there's certain things that can lead, a hospital in a certain direction for the thing they need to do. But at the end of the day, they've got to dig in a little bit deeper to understand the nuance. Like it's not like every case I treat exactly this way just because, that's the way this case went these 2 previous seasons. So there's a lot there, but we're going to get some super cool people on that I really value their opinions, and we'll probably, they've got different opinions than me on some of this stuff, but they're people that what I love is they think about the whole picture. And those are the type of people that I want to get on the show. I just want to hear from dude on Twitter saying just draft upside because you draft upside. Come on, whatever. I'm not interested in that.
Yeah. And we can announce Jack Miller from Establish the Run is going to be here next week on the show. We tweeted that out from @FF Hustle, and he responded. So, hey, we're in.
Jack's awesome, by the way.
Yeah.
The work he's doing. I shot him a DM. I was like, man, because he's a young dude. He is so sharp. At the age that he's at, the sky's the limit for what Jack can do. Whatever he wants to do in his life, whether it's fantasy football wherever he wants to go. Like, I'm just excited to get to hear from like a young, fresh mind that thinks about things differently. Like, and I embrace all that. So I'm super excited about getting Jack on, because I think that he does a good job of thinking about it, like, you know, from all the different edges and thinking about all the different aspects to how this works.
And if you like sharp young minds, there's a kid that works over at PFF, Andrew Erickson, who, breaking news, is going to be my co-host on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio every weekend. As I announced this week, I'm going to be hosting the Pro Football Focus Show on SiriusXM. Andrew and I will be doing it 3 to 5 on Saturdays and Sundays through the month of August. And then once the season starts, we kind of get moved around a little bit. There's the game day show. But if you're, you know, hanging out late afternoon, cruising in the car, cutting the grass, flip over to SiriusXM. You're going to find myself, Andrew Erickson. And I'm sure, folks, Mr. McFarland is going to make an appearance or two on SiriusXM. So really cool to announce that. Let's get into it. And we'll start with the training camp news. And oh boy, Carson Wentz, be still my beating heart. He's injured. So Eagles fans just assume now that their first round pick is gone, because of course, part of the trade to Philadelphia is that Carson Wentz needs to play either 75% of the snaps or 70% of the snaps and make the playoffs. He is now scheduled to miss anywhere between 5 and 12 weeks with a foot injury. He had to get some bones removed from his foot. Not to be outdone, Pro Bowl guard Quentin Nelson has the exact same injury. He's down for the same amount of time now. So the Colts are turning things over to Jacob Eason, second-year quarterback, Dwayne. Now, they could trade for Nick Foles. He carries $14 million in dead cap. I also don't see a team in their division when people talk about Gardner Minshew, they go, oh, trade for Gardner Minshew, trade for Nick Foles. Why would Jacksonville give away to their division rival Gardner Minshew? That doesn't make any sense. Marcus Mariota, another name floated out there, but until we know more, it's Eason. He's going to get things schemed up, I'm sure, Dwayne. Frank Reich, he's really good at that. What we want to focus on, though, is Jonathan Taylor and these receivers, because let's say Wentz is gone for, we'll kind of put it in the middle. Let's say he comes back week 7, okay? Week 6, week 7. He's back for Indianapolis. How much does this crush Jonathan Taylor without not only Wentz, but you're also now down Pro Bowl guard Quentin Nelson?
Yeah, I mean, this is bad. I mean, there's no real other way to put it. What's funny is, like, the way I'm looking at it, Drake, is I just don't own much Jonathan Taylor, because I just wasn't buying at the current price, which was starting to fall enough that I was interested in buying some shares. So I'm waiting to hear some more, you know, on Wentz. If we think it's going to be more like that 6 to 7, you know, week time frame, I'm probably going to grab some Jonathan Taylor when he really falls, right? You know, like if he falls like towards the end of the second round, like he starts to get to a point to where I don't know how much that changes his outlook. Like, it's not good, but at the end of the day, I know that Jonathan Taylor is a really talented player, and once I get past a certain number of guys that I know I really want, and I haven't been able to get exposure to him so far, I'll probably will take some. If I was only going to have one draft, or I'm drafting in 1 or 2 leagues, right now Jonathan Taylor's, you know, it's hard to endorse him. You know, I mean, we were already kind of low on him. Not him the player, not him the talent, but the situation in the ADP, you know, is a little bit high. There are other people in the industry that feel very differently than me. They see Jonathan Taylor as being like the key to winning a fantasy championship. And there's some very smart people that think that. I don't think you have to do that. Here's what I think. I think running back has evolved over the last 4, 5, 6 years. And there just happens to be a lot of really good options right now, right? Mm-hmm. We go through periods. I remember a period where David Johnson's all we had. And like, we were like, thank God we have David Johnson, because there's no one, right? Then Todd Gurley got drafted. Then Zeke got drafted. You know, you had all this other talent really infuse into the league over the last couple of years. So I think that's one of the things when you look back, like at these historical things, I think you just have to take all those sort of things into account. And I think there's quite a few running backs that are worth owning. in the first round, and I would say a lot of them I would rather own than Jonathan Taylor before this. So I still want to own him over Jonathan Taylor. I would say if you're someone that's going to draft 20, 30 teams, whatever the case may be, and you want some Jonathan Taylor exposure and you've been listening to the hustle and you're like, well, I'm just not really buying it. Like, now's your time, to buy a couple of shares, right? If you just want to make sure that you're covered, because I mean, Nelson will eventually be back, Wentz will eventually be back. So you just need to plan for it. Like, where I would probably grab him, Drake, is if he did happen to slide like into the third round. I don't know that you're going to see it that much, but we don't know. Like, these things happen really quick. Like, all of a sudden, like, the market will just shift. I mean, look what happened with Barkley. He went from being round 1 pick forward, and now he's an early second. I mean, so Jonathan Taylor has slowly worked his way down the board, over the last month, getting into a feasible range. Now he's got these injuries. Like, it wouldn't surprise me, if you see him slide, towards the end of the second, in some drafts. And the reason why is because there's plenty of really good players to take in the second round. There's a lot of really good receivers you can draft. We've got an influx of backs. We got Joe Mixon in a full-time role. Antonio Gibson, if he takes over the passing work, he's going to be a beast. If he doesn't, he could be in line for the same carries as Jonathan Taylor anyway, behind a lesser offensive line. But now you've got an injury to Jonathan Taylor's offensive line. So, I mean, there's a lot of different things, a lot of different ways you could go. So I would be waiting, a little bit. But if he started to fall too far, like, that's where I'll make a purchase.
Practice reports say that, Eason's not looking great, but again, why would he? He's a second-year guy who's never been expected to be anything more than kind of a career backup, dumping the ball off a lot. So you could see a lot of Nyheim Hines. Could see
they're gonna try to run the ball with Jonathan Taylor. That's
Yeah.
what they're gonna try to do, right? This is for sure now their recipe.
You got to take the ball out of Eason's hands.
Hope their defense holds up. If they can make a couple plays, get some turnovers, and just let Taylor run. Like, so in some ways, this could pay off, right, from a volume perspective for Taylor early in the season. So, I mean, there's definitely you want to have your best players on the field for your offense, right? You want Wentz, you want Nelson on the field. But, I mean, there is a potential narrative that they lean even harder into Taylor. And if he holds up and does really well, do they even decide once Wentz comes back and Nelson comes back, they're like, well, crap, we're winning like this. Let's just ride Jonathan Taylor for 350 carries. Like, it could happen.
Colts open the season with back-to-back home games, Seattle. Then they host the Rams. They get the Titans on the road, and they're at the Dolphins, and at the Ravens before coming back home to Houston and Week 7 at San Francisco. So, Houston sucks, obviously, in there, but, I mean, everybody else is very formidable in the first 7 weeks.
We've talked about I'm not a big fan of that schedule out of the gate.
No.
But I'll tell you, if they can keep games close and they want to protect the quarterback, this could work a little bit in Jonathan Taylor's favor. My concern when we talked about him before is they could end up in shootouts on all of these, right? And Nyheim Hines in any given game could be on the field for 40% to half of the plays. So,
Amari Cooper says he's getting healthier and he's coming down in weight. He's coming off foot surgery, still on the PUP. All signs point to him being good for the season opener. You're not going to see Dak. You're not going to see Cooper, Lamb, any of these guys this Thursday in the Hall of Fame game. Dak's out with that shoulder issue, probably some overcompensation from not really throwing much because of the obviously dislocated ankle that he had. But the bigger news coming out of Cowboys camp is the insane hype following CeeDee Lamb. He's currently going as wide receiver 10 in the FFPC, while Cooper is wide receiver 14. If you're on Twitter, and why wouldn't you be if you're following this show, all you see are CeeDee Lamb highlights in your feed. It's out of control. CeeDee Lamb is going to be going as like wide receiver 4 by the time August 30th comes around. So, Dwayne, what's going on with CeeDee Lamb? And are we just getting kind of a little crazy here with some of these, Twitter video bullshit catches that we're seeing? I mean, come on.
Look, he's an awesome player.
Sure.
And he's making those plays. I mean, there's nothing to take away from CeeDee Lamb, but I just feel like at some point, like, you have to cap it, right? I mean, he plays with Amari Cooper. He plays with Michael Gallup. He plays on a team that has a running back that's highly paid. Their offensive line is healthy again. I think this is a team that's going to spread it around. It's going to be a highly explosive offense, but that's also going to spread it around. So if you're betting on CeeDee Lamb at the beginning of the third round, which is basically what he's moved up to, I think you're betting on insane efficiency, or you're making a bet on Amari Cooper being hurt. And I'm okay with those things. They're just not the bets that I like to make, because I think there are other players going in that range. And look, we're CeeDee Lamb truthers, man. Like, this is the show that told people last year CeeDee Lamb was worth a 7th round pick, when everybody else is like, oh, Michael Gallup. We're like, no, it's CeeDee Lamb. So, I mean, this is, again, back to projections and digging into the process. It's not so much about the projections, but understanding the teams and really doing all the research, like, and thinking through all these things. It's like, as much as I love CeeDee Lamb, I'm going to be a realist about it, right? Mm-hmm. And it's not just about, oh, I'm betting the mean versus the upside. Yes, CeeDee Lamb has upside, but how much? How much upside does he have in an offense with 2 other really good receivers, even if this offense is off the hook, right? Which it could be. It could be the best offense in the NFL. It could also take a step back. But I'm betting on it being one of the better offenses. I've got him in the top 4 in pass attempts. I've got CeeDee Lamb as taking on a little bit more of the targets than what he took on last year. I got his yards per catch at higher. I got his touchdown percentage at higher for the team. And he still grades out, right, for me, at 251 fantasy points over 17 games, which is really good. But it's right there even with Amari Cooper. I got, Michael Gallup at 202 points. And so when I look at, I could draft Allen Robinson, I could draft Terry McLaurin, that I think also have upside that we're not talking about. If the quarterback play improves, quarterback play isn't everything. Average quarterbacks can support receivers. The problem for Allen Robinson is, we could argue, he's not even had average quarterbacks, right? He's had some of the worst of his career. Remember the year that he went off with Blake Bortles and everybody went nuts and he was a 1st round pick the next year? Remember that, Drake?
I do.
Yeah. I totally avoided him that year because I was like, what happened the year before is not sustainable. Yes, Allen Robinson went nuts, but basically there was a lot of luck involved because Blake Bortles sucks. So this is kind of the thing with CeeDee Lamb. It's just different. It's like, there's so many things here. And I know what you'll hear on Twitter is, oh, well, there's way more paths to him being better than being, than not hitting his upside. I don't know. I don't personally buy into that. I love CeeDee Lamb. I'm going to own as much of him as I can. I'm just not going to reach for him, So if I'm sitting there and I'm staring at Terry McLaurin and Allen Robinson, I've got a tier break, and CeeDee Lamb's at the very top of the next tier with Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, Tyler Lockett, all those players. CeeDee Lamb I have in that same tier, and I consider him to be pretty much the same as those. You can make the argument, yes, that he has more upside than those, and I agree, which is why I have him at the top of the tier. But I think Terry McLaurin has a chance to dominate his team, a better chance to dominate his team in targets. He gets an upgrade in quarterback. CeeDee Lamb's great at every area of the field, but so is Terry McLaurin. He can go deep. He can work intermediate. He can run after the catch. He can work short. And we have a quarterback now that's not afraid to throw him the ball. Yes, Curtis Samuel is coming in, but Curtis Samuel is just going to help Terry McLaurin, right? So I think McLaurin, you're locked in 22, 25% of your target share. I think Lamb, his upside is 21 to 22%. Yeah, Cowboys could run more plays. They could have a more explosive offense. Yes, like a tooth fairy could come steal all my teeth out of my mouth tonight. There's all sorts of stuff that could happen. I love Lamb. You're looking at my Pro Football Focus rankings. Where do I have him, Drake? You got him pulled up. Right.
You've got him at 29th right now. Overall, your wide receiver 13.
13, right? So 10 is just a tad rich because that's where my tier break is. You get past McLaurin and Robinson, I'm taking him. If you're going to draft a bunch of teams like me, I'm going to mix CeeDee Lamb in 1 and 5 times, right, over those other 2. I'd like to own CeeDee Lamb 20% just because I love the player, and I agree that there is an outlier case that he just goes nuts, and we're making a bet on talent. But at the same time, I'm not going to take CeeDee Lamb every time. I had somebody on Twitter saying they're taking CeeDee Lamb over Keenan Allen. It's just getting kind of out of hand, in my opinion. There's no need to have to do that.
And when Cedric Wilson starts coming in for him, I'm going to lose my mind and break my television. All right, let's keep rolling here. In Denver, we got a few notes. First, OC Pat Shurmur, our favorite guy, is talking up Drew Lock in his battle versus Teddy Bridgewater. That's just got to be putting people to sleep out there. I feel for our buddy Cecil Lamby having to watch that. Neither of these guys are options in redraft. Now, wide receiver Cortland Sutton, this is why I mentioned the blurb, is having his reps managed in camp as he recovers from a torn ACL. Head coach Vic Fangio said he's, quote, still holding back and sees a little hesitancy in Sutton. Now, Cortland's currently going off in the FFPC ahead of teammate Jerry Jeudy in round 7. Mr. McFarland, you think that is a lie. That should not happen.
Yeah, I mean, I look, they're both close. I like both players. At this case, I'm just going to go with the health. And I know Jerry Jeudy had drops and all those things last year, but drops don't really concern me. Jeudy did a really nice job. If you listen to Matt Harmon, reception, perception, he's doing a solid job, right, of being able to get open and do the things he needs to do. I expect to see him to take another step forward. He's been doing really good in training camp. It could easily be a 1A, 1B kind of thing, Drake. But what I like about Jeudy, and what I like about Sutton is you can get them a little bit later. Yeah, I don't like their quarterback situation, but I don't have to pay up really, so I think Jerry Jeudy right now I can get depends on your format. Is it 3 receivers, two flex, all that kind of stuff. But like an FFPC where I do a lot of drafting, I can get Jerry Jeudy, 7th roundish. So I like making bets on young players. And I just don't want to feel like I have to force them if I have other players that I like just as much as them that I think have, a shot at a better floor. And so with Jerry Jeudy, he's definitely on my radar. He's not going to be on every team of mine, but when it works out and he makes it to me, that's a player that I'm very interested, in drafting.
Sticking in Denver, Melvin Gordon has been quoted as running ahead of rookie Javonte Williams, and it's not really close. Williams being drafted, Dwain, 35 picks ahead of Melvin Gordon. Now, Melvin Gordon is a professional running back, someone with a contract that they probably cannot get out of. They're going to have him on the roster this year. They're going to want to take some heat off of Teddy or Drew Lock, whoever's under center. Melvin Gordon is a guy who is criminally underrated in fantasy football drafts. If you can get him as your your running back 3, running back 4, I mean, holy smokes. Javonte Williams, I'm looking at FFPC right now. His ADP is 57. Melvin Gordon's 93. 93! I mean, you're looking at an 8th round pick for a guy who could be your wide receiver 3 or running back 3 or 4. That's awesome. I'd love to flex Melvin Gordon if I had to in a pinch.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's fine in a pinch. Here's my take. It's less about drafting Melvin Gordon, and it's just more about fading Javonte Williams in the 5th round. I'm just going to draft Michael Carter or Trey Sherman in the 6th or the 7th and just call it a day. There's too many other people I like in the 5th round. I'm not drafting Javonte Williams over Deontay Johnson. I'm not drafting Javonte Williams over probably Chase Claypool. I'm not drafting Javonte Williams. Hell, you could throw Jerry Jeudy in there. I don't have to take him that soon, but I'm just not. And I like drafting rookie running backs. But again, we've looked at this. It's really hard to overcome someone like Melvin Gordon. We're not talking about walking in, to a situation that's wide open. And look, things could change. Gordon could get released. Great. Okay, awesome. I'll draft Javonte Williams in the 3rd round all day long. But I'm not drafting him in the 5th round right now because of the opportunity cost. There's too many receivers I love in the 5th round to make me have to take Javonte Williams. Whenever I can wait till the 6th or 7th and I can get Sermon or I can get Michael Carter, who I feel just as good about, and my opportunity costs go down. And this is not hate on Javonte Williams. I just don't have to draft Javonte Williams in the 5th round. Even if by week 9, 10, or 11, he's really going off, right, and helping carry there. That's the value you're looking for if you draft him there. Is you're hoping eventually he can take over. Maybe the Broncos suck and they're like, screw it, Melvin's out next year. Just give it to Javonte. Let's see what he got. That happens, right? And rookies tend to perform down the stretch. So I'm not going to sit here and say they don't. But again, it's about opportunity costs. I like that kind of a pick in the 6th, 7th round. And every year it's different. But 5th round, man, there's juicy receivers, Drake. There's receivers that I think could be doing just as good as Javonte Williams down the stretch. And in the 6 to 8 games before Javonte Williams even takes over, if he does, I'll tell you right now, if Denver's competitive, that's probably worse on Javonte Williams than it is for Denver not being good, right? You could make an argument that Denver not being good is not good for Javonte either, because they could just be like, well, why do we want to really use him up and get him hurt? Let's just let Melvin Gordon run out his contract. If they're playing really well and doing well and Melvin Gordon's doing his job, well, then how does Javonte get on the field? So I get it. Rookie running backs can perform in the second half of the season, but it's not every rookie running back that does that. And again, opportunity costs absolutely matter to me. If Javonte Williams, and you're looking at my rankings, I've got Javonte Williams, Trey Sherman, and Michael Carter all really close. And that's what it comes down to for me, is I'm going to pass Javonte Williams for the receiver And I'm going to take Trey Sherman at, a round and a half later, or Michael Carter in that spot, and feel just as good about it as I am Javonte Williams. Michael Carter's in a wide open race. He's got to deal with Tevin Coleman and, Ty Johnson, for crying out loud. Like, if you like Michael Carter and he doesn't have a lot of draft capital, I get it. But to me, I'm willing to make a bet on him a round and a half later versus Javonte Williams having to deal with Melvin Gordon, despite having the better draft capital. Trey Sermon's the one that really has my attention. That's the guy I want because we know Raheem Mostert has struggled to stay healthy. Yes, Shanahan's willing to rotate all these backs, but there are years where Shanahan was around, and people forget Shanahan was around under Gary Kubiak when Arian Foster was going fucking nuts, and they didn't have another back. He was there when Alfred Morris was getting everything besides what Robert Griffin was in Washington. So if this guy comes out and balls out and Mostert gets hurt, even if Mostert doesn't get hurt, I would put the odds on Trey Sherman taking over his backfield, me personally, as higher than Javonte Williams taking over the backfield in Denver. And I think San Francisco's offense is better. I like Kyle Shanahan better. I like Trey Sherman, the player, better than Javonte Williams, and I get a discount. So I'm just going to lean back, let everyone else take Javonte Williams. And if I'm wrong on it, I'll own it. Shit happens. I'm not playing those odds.
Spoiler alert, we're doing the Jets and 49ers team previews in about 10 minutes. So stick around, but you got a nice peek behind the curtain there of what we can cut the show off early because you already heard it, folks. There it is. All right, let's go over to Arizona now, where Christian Kirk has missed a few practices, which is allowing AJ Green, remember him, and Rondelle Moore to turn some heads in Cardinals camp. Now this is going to sound terrible because everyone wants to chase upside and nobody likes the old guys anymore. I kind of like taking a shot on AJ Green super late in the draft. I mean, yeah, Rondelle Moore, let's take a shot on him too. I mean, Jesus, in FFPC, Moore's coming off, at pick 200. AJ Green's at 229, wide receiver 71. In this kind of passing offense with backs that I'm not sure about, I'll take a stab at one of those guys as like my wide receiver 6. AJ Green is literally like a Hall of Fame player who hasn't played in 2 years, basically. He just sat out last year. He didn't want to play in Cincinnati. So now he kind of picked his spot. He's in Arizona opposite DeAndre Hopkins. He's never going to see a double team. Like AJ Green, week 3, people could be going like, AJ Green's my wide receiver 3, and he's in his lineup every week. Crazier things have happened.
Yeah, I totally get it. Like where I want to place my chip is, and you named them both, but I do want to own young players with upside. And when you give me a discount on a player like Rondelle Moore, like I want some, right? I want to own that. I want to get in on as many upside players late in my draft as I can at those sort of prices. Rondelle Moore, it wouldn't surprise me at all, Drake. If I'll think how much 11 and 10 personnel this team runs. Actually they run 12 and 10 the most out of their 2 sets. They're pretty dynamic, but they've got 3 to 4 receivers on the field all the time, and the offense is built around spacing. This offense could be perfect for Rondelle Moore, and you get him basically free. Rondelle Moore is the type of rookie receiver like you should be pounding the draft button on every single draft. In my personal opinion, I want to own him as absolutely much as I can. He's a guy that gives me upside. So I'm all over it. And I don't mind the AJ Green thing either. That's just to the point in the draft where I actually am now going youth, right? And we'll go through roster construction and we'll talk through, the draft plan this year, and we'll get into that. But Rondelle Moore is squarely in my crosshairs as a guy that I want to own plenty of. And it doesn't cost me a lot to own him. And what's going to be, an offense with a quarterback that's improving, throw the ball all the time. They're going to be explosive. Like that's the kind of player you want to place a bet on. And if you're wrong, it doesn't cost you a lot. You move on after 3 weeks and you pick up the running back you need off the waiver wire, right? Because your guy's dinged up and somebody else has gone down for the season, and you're grabbing the Mike Davis of next year, right? So that's a great call out by you. Like I actually still like Christian Kirk. I kind of hate hearing that, I was kind of hoping he'd finally get to play the slot. So I'm placing bets on Christian Kirk really late in drafts as well. Like talking last round. I mean, I have some drafts where I've drafted Rondelle Moore and Christian Kirk, not best ball, but in redraft.
Some of these guys we're going to talk about here, there's great buying windows. They're going to happen because of this camp news. And that's something to monitor in your home leagues. And, if you're doing some underdog or whatever you're up to, there's a lot of folks who are kind of in and out. Maybe they're just coming back into fantasy, and they'll hear, oh, a guy we're going to talk about in a minute, Devonta Smith hurt his knee. He's not going to practice for the rest of the camp. You'll get to their fantasy draft in August, and these guys are going, oh, Devonta Smith's hurt. Like, he's never going to play again. Like, people don't follow it as religiously maybe as hustle listeners. So we appreciate you guys being here. And one of the guys we appreciate, my partner in the Kings Classic draft, which is next Saturday, by the way, Kevin Tompkins, a great guy from the Lightning Round podcast. He and I from Fighting Chance Fantasy are going to be drafting together in the 14-team Experts League draft inside the walls of the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And he messaged in our YouTube chat, Drake, if you mention AJ Green at the Kings Classic, I'm going to immediately leave and go get hammered. I would say pack a few tall boys, my friend, because might get crazy. So look forward to that. Let's go over to New York, where the Giants brought in Kenny Golladay this offseason in their big free agent splash. But he left camp today, and he's got a hamstring injury. Monitor the situation. We don't have any updates on Golladay, but he's going off the boards as wide receiver 28 in round 6. Big fan of Kenny Golladay. And with an offense like this, they're probably going to just – Jason Garrett, Dwayne. Is this just all fades at the goal line that they're just going to throw up to Kenny Golladay because they have no other imagination?
Yeah. I don't even know what to say. I just know that I think my favorite tweet, like people gave me of the weekend, was my retweet of Gil Brandt it's like I pictured Gil Brandt talking in like Tom Hanks's voice, like you got vanilla bean, vanilla butternut, whatever. Like it sounds like they're describing Jason Garrett's offense. So Daniel Jones has been struggling with Kenny Golladay. They've not been able to hook up. We've got offensive problems there. I really don't want to own much of the Giants offense. I will say Saquon Barkley could still be a league winner, and he's being discounted into the early second round now. And I think even if he misses 3 or 4, even if he's limited, my guess is he's going to be ready week 1, but he's just going to be limited. Again, I'm not a doctor. This is just me. They did sign Alfred,
Oh, stop.
Alfred Cheesecake Morris.
Give me a break. I love when people do that on Twitter. Alfred Morris signed to be the 11th running back in camp. That's it. Barkley's done. Season's over. Put him in a cast. It's Alfred freaking Morris, folks. Like, don't you think they have other players on the team also? Like, it's not like Alfred Morris is coming in off the couch and today he's going to just walk into first team reps.
Well, they're not saying that though, Drake. It's Jason Garrett's guy. He knows Alfred Morris. If they're worried about Barkley, like I think it fits into the narrative. But the point
cut him tomorrow.
They could, but they obviously want a body. Like they're doing something, right? And we continue to get these data points about Barkley. So he's probably not going to be full strength to start the year. But what I'm saying is if you can get Barkley in the early second round, that is the type of bet I would place because I do believe Barkley can be a league winning back from weeks 5 through 16 in your league, right? CeeDee Lamb has a chance and we like him and I can get him in the early third. Barkley, all I know I got to do is him just get through whatever the weeks are that they're not going to give him the full load. And once they decide they give it to him, I have Christian McCaffrey is basically what I have. So that's a bet I'm willing to make. As long as Barkley's sitting at early second round, man, I'm pounding. I love going Tyreek Hill Barkley, Devontae Adams Barkley, Stephon Diggs Barkley. Love it. Like all day long, buying as much of Barkley as I can while he's in the early second round. Because Drake, any little positive news is going to move him back in the first.
Yeah. Guess who you're going to plug in?
It doesn't even have to be true positive news. It could just be a beat writer saying anything, and it's going to move him up.
Yeah. Guess who you plug in when Barkley, they say, oh, he's going to be limited week 1. Melvin Gordon, who you drafted in the 9th round that nobody wanted to touch.
Or you just draft Devontae Booker.
Well, you can get him too, which we did in the draft we just did. Did you see there was a brawl today at Giants camp? Massive team brawl. Joe Judge made the coaches, the players, everybody's running laps. They're doing wind sprints. It's crazy. It's like Friday Night Lights all over again. Remember the Titans? I don't know. Pick your cliched movie. Like the Giants are a dumpster fire, and this Eagles fan couldn't be happier.
That's crazy. Surely answering your question, you asked Barkley versus Aaron Jones in a standard league. I'm still going Aaron Jones. If you go to Pro Football Focus, you'll see where I have Aaron Jones. My guess is higher than My guess is I have him higher than anybody, like on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
But I could be wrong about that.
I'll just say, I want you guys to use promo code HUSTLE and save 25% so you can see those. I did an underdog draft last night. I took Aaron Jones at the 104 in that draft. I'm doing another draft as we speak because I'm a degenerate. I got Aaron Jones at like the 202. I paired him up with Stephon Diggs. So I'm already just cashing my winnings in that league.
I keep looking back at the teams where I was getting Devontae Adams at 210. I'm like, oh my God, like this is going to be awesome. But a lot of people were getting him at that spot. So we'll see how that plays out.
People are asking.
I see Joe saying, hey, Barkley, unnecessary risk in my opinion. He does carry risk.
Sure.
I think he's a different unnecessary risk. And here's why. I do believe that we're better at looking at percentages and things around injuries. But at the same time, I think that they're going to nurse Barkley back 2 to 3 weeks. Barkley's different than CeeDee Lamb because Barkley, we know when Barkley's Barkley, like he gets it all, man. He gets everything. He gets the catches. He gets the goal line carries. He has the big plays. He is the type of player who can win you your league because essentially, even though you may miss him the first 3 or 4 weeks, once you get him back, Drake, he could be the same as what you're getting at pick 1-1 or 1-2, with Cook. He is that good. And so that's what I like about Barkley. Now, if somebody's worried about the injury, I'm not going to blame you. We love Joe Mixon this year. You could get Aaron Jones there. I mean, there's all sorts of things you can do to pivot. So I totally get the comment and I'm fine with other people. None of these things are absolutes. That's the thing, right? We're giving our opinions. I try to think about probabilities. Like I try to plot these things out, but they're never perfect, right? So when you say this, Drake, you say it the best. Like when it comes down to it and it's your pick, have fun, make your pick. We're going to arm you with the information. We give you the ideas around what we would do. But at the end of the day, when Barkley's coming off at 2-2, Joe's right. There's a lot of really good players that you could take at that spot. So I'm not going to hate on anybody, that wants to take, maybe a stud receiver falls to you there. Maybe Austin Eckler falls to you there. There's all sorts of things that can happen at round 2, pick 2.
Sticking with gimpy NFC East wide receivers, Devonta Smith of the Eagles will miss most of camp with a knee sprain. I'm telling you, folks, this is the time to buy. Devonta Smith is a stud. He is by far the best receiving option on the Philadelphia Eagles. If you look at, we mentioned Matt Harmon's reception perception. Jalen Reagor was, I believe, the second worst all time against man coverage, press coverage. Yeah. So now we enter Devonta Smith. He's a guy I legit think could get 25% target share. Look at me talking like Dwayne, like I'm smart, but he really could. And in an offense where you're going to have Jalen Hurts out here, kind of funneling things to kind of 3 options. You're either going to go, all right, you got Smith, you got Goddard, maybe Rager's over here, and then we got the running back Sanders out of the backfield. And they're already talking up a lot of running back passes in training camp. But time to buy on Smith. Don't pass him over. Really, really nice wide receiver 3 for you who could be a wide receiver 2.
Yeah, and I think to your point, you just buy the dip. I'm not moving Devonta Smith yet. Here's what I will say. Rookie receivers who miss time in camp, traditionally, that's not been good. It's pretty much just been terrible historically, because there's a lot to a passing game, right? The timing, the nuance of it. There's a lot. It's a big jump, moving from the college game to the NFL game as a receiver. So I am still willing to bet on Devonta Smith's talent. I'd like to see when he's back. If he misses all of training camp, I will definitely be more concerned, and I will not expect him to start fast at all. But what I would say is if that happens and you have league mates drop him, maybe you're in a shallow league after week 1, they're like, oh man, Devonta Smith did nothing. I'm pouncing on him if I can stash him on my bench. I don't want to start Devonta Smith week 1 if I can help it. And again, this will come back to roster construction. There's ways to take players like this and take them in certain rounds when the risk profile is right to get your upside. And you're already planning ahead. And if you listen to our draft plan the last 2 years, we've talked you through this, right? Here's how you take a player in round 6. You're not even planning on starting week 1. So you can have him on your roster as upside, right? And then here's what you're going to do later in the draft to offset that. Like, we're going to walk you through that. And so Devonta Smith could be fitting into that bucket, right? By the time we're really digging into the draft plan and folks are in full swing with draft season, which, man, I can't believe it, Drake. Like, it's getting here. It's so close.
I know. We're getting guys asking questions in the chat
jazzed
about the draft plan show. We don't have an exact date for it yet. Dwayne and I are working that out, but here's a hint. It's going to be in the next 3-4 weeks because there's only so many weeks left.
Well, we've done
to go.
We've done 2 the last 2 years. So my goal, we'll have a big announcement for you guys next week. Some cool stuff that's happening. Obviously Drake's Mr. SiriusXM. So again, complete high fives back to you, Drake. I love you. I'm so excited for what you're getting to do with that. We've got some more announcements coming. So we'll just leave it at that. But my goal would be to do just like we have, to do 2 of them, to do one here in the next couple of weeks and then do another one. Even if we've got to squeeze in an extra episode or something, like, we'll figure it out. I would like to do one like when draft seasons are kicking off. So all my personal league mates can listen to that and then snipe me all draft. And then we'll do another one like closer, to like when you got like a week and a half or 2 weeks left of drafting.
And spoiler alert, I may try to do a show from the Pro Football Hall of Fame where I dial into Dwayne and we have your favorite drunken fantasy football analysts just coming on the show, kind of popping.
I'll just probably have you hand the mic over to Tompkins.
Yeah. Oh, and we'll have everybody. Our buddy Drew Davenport will be 6 sheets to the wind. We'll get Ryan Hallam on there. A lot of good guys. Our buddy Daigle will be out there. Rich Rebar. We're running all the good folks. I know this is so lame. I'm beyond nobody in America cares about this besides me and Kevin Tompkins. I'm into this TBT basketball tournament, and no one in America cares. If you're already listening, the tournament's over. But my Syracuse alumni team is 3 points away from winning $1 million, and I'm very, very into it. But
Michael brings up Michael brings up a great point about Odell Beckham Jr. in the chat. His rookie year preseason hamstring was one of the few exceptions. And if you remember, it wasn't pretty early. Beckham came on late that year, right? It was around midseason. He picked up steam and just took off. And basically, if you owned him in the playoffs, again, rookies paying off late in the season, it can happen. But you kind of had to just sit on Odell. Most people released Beckham that year. And the only reason I remember is because I picked him up everywhere I could as soon as people dropped him. Because I was super excited about him as a rookie. And I found ways to stash him on multiple rosters that year and, was able to plug him in, at the end of the season. So, yeah, perfect comment from Michael. You may have to sit on Devonta Smith for a little bit, and he could turn into that type of player. What you love about Smith, Drake, we'll see. But what I've been watching is, like, how is he doing against man and press coverage, right?
Mm-hmm.
He can't. And it sounds like he's been great. And he was good at that in college. So, this is a guy that can get open everywhere. So I'm with you. It's like, if you can let him slide a bit and then you buy the dip, just know that you're not going to put him in your lineup most likely week 1, unless all of a sudden by next week he's back on the practice field.
Do you want to hear the worst Odell Beckham rookie year story of all time in fantasy? So, all right, people are just going to unfollow me on Twitter after they hear this. I had Odell Beckham in my big money home league. I'm Mr. Smart Guy doing a podcast, all this BS. I got Odell, and I know he's not doing anything, but I'm stashing him on there, and I'm trying to think ahead. I'm like, all right, you know what? I need a kicker. This guy just dropped Robbie Gould. I'm going to pick up Robbie Gould, and I'll just drop Odell. No one will pick him up, and I'll be able to get him next week. I lost out on Odell Beckham for a kicker, and he went off. I obviously did not win the league. And everyone's like, you are the biggest moron on the planet, and you write for a fantasy site. And I'm just like, I'll never live this down. This is unbelievable. Yes, I dropped Odell Beckham for a kicker his rookie season at Drake Fantasy if you want to send hate my way. So, Dwayne, after hearing that, you probably don't want to be my friend anymore.
I don't. There's one other cost. There's Justin Jefferson crush without training camp. That's actually Justin Jefferson was in training camp last year, and he actually was doing fine. Just the reports were that he was behind BC Johnson. He was the third receiver, but it wasn't so much like he just missed a ton of time. Yeah. Right? I mean, like, I'm looking at it just to make sure I wasn't wrong and had forgotten about it. It's like I'm looking at it on Google right now. Justin Jefferson, August 20th, making a great catch, August
Hey, it's my birthday.
26th, making a great catch in training camp. So I mean, he may have been hurt somewhere along the way, but I was pretty certain he was healthy. Like the last couple of weeks of training camp, heading into the season. Maybe I'm missing something there. That was from Austin, so Austin may have more details he can share with us. But 1991 handicapper just unfollowed you. So
oh my God, yeah, another golf guy. That's all I need. My golf league this Thursday. If you guys want to hear a lot about my life, obviously. Coming into my golf league, 9th hole. It's a 9-hole league. I'm even par coming in at number 9. Triple bogey 8 to shoot 3 over. So, yeah, my Thursday was fantastic. Let's get into another group of people who are always super happy, and that's Jets fans. And we're going to preview the Jets with Dwayne's projections. They're completely overhauling their team. Adam Gase is out. His horrendous offense is gone. In steps Robert Saleh, Mike LaFleur, and a new scheme headed by 2nd overall pick and former Disney princess Zach Wilson. So I can tell you all the stats in the world about last year. None of it matters. Who cares? They suck. That regime's gone. Let's focus, Dwayne, this year on Wilson, Michael Carter, who was noted by Connor Hughes of The Athletic as being, quote, a step above the other 3 RBs today, and a wide receiver group that's headlined by free agent addition Corey Davis and rookie Elijah Moore.
Yeah, I'm super excited about it. Sounds weird to say super excited about, the Jets offense. And the reason why is because we've seen this scheme make average teams look efficient and look good. And so the Jets, they've done some things on the offensive line. It's not perfect, but it's definitely getting better. They've got an elite left tackle. They've now got a quarterback. We'll see. A lot of the people that we really look to don't like Zach Wilson as a pro prospect, but they have also said, hey, you put him in a scheme like this and he probably could function. So he landed in the perfect spot. And so we get another Shanahan Kubiak style scheme, which can be really friendly to 2 or 3 players. So the way I look at it, this team's going to be as run heavy as they can. They're probably going to be in a lot of bad game scripts. So that means they're going to be more of a pass balanced team. Right now, I've got the Jets. Vegas has them at 6 wins. PFF's got them at 7.8 wins. So I've got them at 61% passing plays, which include your dropbacks, which some turn into sacks, some turn into scrambles. 39% of the plays I've got as rushing plays. So once you balance all that out and you look at what are actual pass attempts versus rushing attempts, I've got 55, 45, 567 passing attempts, 457 rushing attempts. Zach Wilson is not a guy like I'm really targeting Drake, but if I can, once I get to, the range of the draft where we're looking at players, like David Carr, we're looking at, players like, I'm just trying to think.
He's that guy who's going to be like on the waiver wire article every week. Playing a match. Here's where he fits. He'll run around a little bit, put him in.
Yeah, I mean, like where he fits for me is like once you get past like Baker Mayfield, unless you're going to start taking shots, like I'm not taking him ahead of Trey Lance. I'm not taking him ahead of Justin Fields or any of the other guys that I think have higher upside that I'm willing to let sit on my bench for a few weeks and hopefully they get into the game and they can play. But if you're talking about, once you get down to Kirk Cousins, you start getting down around Baker Mayfield, you start getting around Derek Carr. I think I said David Carr earlier. Good God, what a flashback. Derek Carr. Like that's the range, right, where I start to put him at. And if you want to take him over, say, Derek Carr, just because you're like, I kind of think he may have a little more upside. Well, great. Like it doesn't really cost you a lot. But what I'm most excited about are the other 2 players you mentioned. I'm very excited about Michael Carter. We continue to hear good things. I do think there's going to be a rotation to start the season for what it's worth. I think Michael Carter will not come out and own everything, but I think he's still going to be the lead back. I have him down right now for 47% of the carries on the season. So that's right around 215 carries. I've got him at 870 rushing yards and 7 rushing touchdowns. I think he's going to be the lead. What I'm hearing the most things about that gets me the most encouraged, Drake, is the passing work with Carter. Because what's the hardest thing for a rookie to come in and take over is to get that passing down work. So once you have that, and if they like you in the other areas, that sets you up to be a potential every down back. I do think they'll probably still try to spell Carter. They'll use some Ty Johnson. They'll use some Tevin Coleman. They've all 3 been getting, even LaMichael P. Ryan's been doing a little bit. But I think it's easy to see Carter being in this wide open situation. I like his ADP. It is starting to creep up a little bit, but I think if you, based on, again, We'll talk about it on the draft plan show, but I think there's some really cool ways that you can work Michael Carter into your mix. So right now, I mean, I've got him at 190 points, in a PPR. If you were to look at it in a 16-game schedule, that'd be 180 points, just to kind of give you a reference. If you look at half PPR, 174. And for Shirley, we never forget you, non-PPR, 157 points. Shirley is good. We're not even going to call it non-PPR or standard. We're going to call it Shirley scoring because we love Shirley. And he is small. She says he's a small guy, though. And he is. So I do think they'll continue to work in some other players. And that's why I think there's going to be a rotation. But I still think if he can get to around 50% of the carries, he might have upside to get around to 55%, somewhere in there, maybe push for 60. Jamal Charles was a smaller guy, and he pushed the 55, 60% range. We've seen multiple backs do it. And this is a scheme where if you know how to play in space, I think there's some things that Michael Carter can do. And plus, our good buddy of the show, Jay Moyer, loves Michael Carter, and we love Jay Moyer. So obviously, we love that. And now, man, dude, Elijah Moore, what better things could we hear, Drake? If you're following me on Twitter, I put it out there right away as soon as I read the article this week. I loved what I was hearing. That he's going to be the number 1 or number 2 option. Promise. I should never say promise. It's happening. This
is a guy too. Your home league. None of those guys are going to know about. No one's talking about
Elijah Moore is going too late right now. I've got him, Drake. I think right around wide receiver, between 40 and 50. In my first pass of my projections. I'm getting ready to move him up. So here's what I love. Here's what I heard. They're using him offset, right? They're putting him in bunch formations, letting him get free releases off the line. They're putting him in motion. They're throwing screen passes. He's getting deep shots. He's being used all over the field, and he's dominating practice, right? I know it's still practice, but this is a guy that we saw good things from in college. He's a mix of what they did with Debo last year in San Francisco and some of the things they also did with Eiuk. Now, I'm not saying that he's either one of those players or that he's going to, instantaneously be as good as either one of those players. But I think that's what you're looking at, Drake. You could be getting in the 10th, 11th, 12th round, you could be getting a slightly lesser version of Brandon Eiuk or Debo Samuel. You could argue you're getting a better version because I think there is a scenario where Corey Davis has been around a while, right? We like Corey Davis, but is he really that good? I mean, he's a first-round pick. He's kind of hung around. He's an 900-yard receiver guy. There's a chance Elijah Moore comes in and goes off for 1,100, 1,200 yards, and he's the number 1 offensive player on this team. I want to own Elijah Moore, all the time. He's a guy I will be planting a flag on. He'll be in my guys on PFF in my article this year, unless something weird happens. I'm hearing all the right things. Yep, Crowder's there. But I don't think that matters. I think you hear the stuff with Keelan Cole. I think that Elijah Moore is going to be playing in 2 wide receiver sets and 3 wide receiver sets. It's just a matter of, does Elijah Moore kick inside in 3 wides and Keelan Cole plays outside? Or is it going to be Elijah Moore stays outside and Jamison Crowder plays inside when they go to 3 wide? And it could be a mix of those 2 things for those other 2 guys. Because let's face it, tight end, you really don't have one. Tyler Croft is the start. If you're in a deep league, Tyler Croft is he could be a nice late, very last pick of your draft kind of thing. If you're wanting to carry a second tight end, especially in a tight end premium type league. We know this offense can be friendly to tight ends, but I'm not trying to place a bunch of bets on Tyler Croft. They like him as a blocker. Chris Herndon can't get out of his own damn way. And that's basically what's happening. So I'm to the point right now. I'm going to do it live right now on the show, Drake. Let's just switch.
We'll do it
Elijah
live.
Moore. We'll do it live. F it. We'll do it live. Elijah Moore needs to be over. Right now, I had Corey Davis at 20%, and originally I had Elijah Moore around 17%. I mean, I had already bumped it to 19. So I think Elijah Moore is going to be he and Carter, man. I'm excited about him. And again, I know that we've got a rookie quarterback. We got a lot of weird shit going on, but this is one of those kind of offenses where you can get a lot right out of a little from this scheme, and they are installing it. It could be rough. I'm just going to tell you guys, it could be a little rough out of the gate. I wouldn't expect it just to come out and be screaming. Mm-hmm. I think as they get things going, these are 2 players that you're going to want to own on your fantasy teams. Don't know that I want to own them both together. Right? Because I'm not super ecstatic about owning a bunch of Jets. But this, to your point, you mentioned this is a completely different offense than we've known with the Jets, right? Take everything you knew about the Jets before and pretty much just erase it. That's what the difference. Yes, that's what the difference is going to be. So 2 players, man. How long has it been since I've been able to be excited about a Jet, Drake? I really don't remember. Brandon Marshall a few years ago. Like I was okay with that. Like I wasn't nuts about it, but I think that's it. I think that's the last time.
Art Monk.
Because we told people to fade Le'Veon Bell. People talk about the running back.
I don't know who was on the Jets.
Altoon. Yes,
was Art Monk on the Jets? I feel like Art Monk was on the Jets for 5 minutes. Maybe he was. I know he was on Washington.
Maybe he was definitely at Washington. I'm trying to think who else like besides that. Like yes, Altoon for sure. Whose son played for the Saints for a little bit.
Chad Pennington, Tim Tebow.
Man. Dude, I love Chad Pennington. Like man, you're taking me.
Laveranues
Coles. There you go. Florida State guy. Mike Greenberg, man, used to go nuts about Chad Pennington. I remember I'd be driving to work every day back in the day, young Dwayne days, back when Dwayne looked like he did last week, like all the time. Calling on doctors. I was a pharmaceutical rep, be in the car all day, have the radio on.
Look at you.
Yeah, man. Chad Pennington. Anyway,
Mark Sanchez, who just got.
Never liked Mark Sanchez. And people are going nuts.
Quarterbacks they've had there.
People are going nuts over here. Erase the past 30 years. Jones, Holmes, Toon, and Wesley Walker. Who's Wesley Walker?
Eric, our downstate New York Joe Namath. Yeah, I have an autographed Joe Namath.
Eric Decker. Joe throws that. Yeah, that's right. Eric Decker went there for a spell. Remember that year Eric Decker caught like 30 passes and like I think 12 of them for touchdowns.
Yeah, it was 2013 for the Denver Broncos. It was amazing because I see this big trophy over here. I won it. Thanks, Eric Decker.
You didn't win a trophy, Drake. That's fake. You just bought that.
True. No
okay,
question.
what are we doing? We talked to like the Jets.
Yeah, we got the Jets. All right, that's the Jets. It's like, it's funny.
Keyshawn. Yeah, how can we forget? Just throw me the damn ball.
Yeah, exactly. If you're getting ready for a draft, you're getting fired up with your buddies. You're like, I'm going to go to the draft. I'm drafting all Jets. You got your Fireman Ed jersey on or whatever you got going on. But then you get there and you're like, oh, crap. Like, we need a draft board. This is where we come in. Our buddies over at draftwithredzone.com are here to help. We're selling a ton of these things. I'm not going to lie. You get a draft board. You get the stickers. You get stickers with your team names on them. I'm not lying, folks. I have this. It's sitting right over here. You get a ring in a case right here. Look at this. It says FF Hustle Podcast. Your team name or league name could be on there. You open it up. Boom. Look at this championship ring that I just dropped on my expensive keyboard right here. That's what you're going to get from draftwithredzone.com. Use our promo code FF Hustle. Save a couple of bucks. They're good guys over there. Really glad to be on board with them. Draftwithredzone.com. Don't wait till the last minute, folks. Don't wait till the last minute. Your draft will be here before you freaking know it. So use our code FF Hustle. All right. The Super Bowl champs are running it back, Dwayne. And if I hear running it back one more time, I'm going to run into a brick wall. The Bucs offense was #good last year. They finished tied for third in the league in touchdowns, third in total points, were top 5 in passing yards and TDs, all thanks to some rando named Brady, who they got off the scrap heap, who also led the NFL in deep passing attempts his first year with the team. Wonder if he'll be back this year. All this passing, Dwayne, must mean they have good wide receivers. So let's get your projections for their big three. Mike Evans, who is wide receiver 16, that's a 4th rounder, closely followed by Chris Godwin, who's also going in the 4th round, and then Antonio Brown, who used to be like the first overall pick, who's going in round 9.
Yeah, let's jump in real quick. Gonna hit on Brady. Quick reveal. So Brady, I have in my top 8 quarterbacks for the season. So if you look at him last year, 273.6 yards per game, 7.1 yards per attempt for the first 8 weeks. That's without Antonio Brown. And Godwin missed 4 of those 8 games. They threw 60% of the time. Averaged 305.5 yards, Drake, 8.1 yards per attempt. That's the big thing, the efficiency over the last 8, which would have come out to 4,888 yards if you extrapolated that. Now we've got a 17-game season. Tom Brady's throwing for over 5,000 yards this year. It's going to happen. People, I love Dak. I love the Cowboys offense. But, why are people, it's funny, how unexcited people are about. And again, I get it. It's because there's 3 guys, right? to throw the ball to. And you can go whatever approach you want to, but let's just remember last year, Chris Godwin was a player that we were actually trying to tell people to cool off on. Again, so this is a great example, just to tie it back to earlier in the show. I remember last year, Drake, I was touting DeAndre Hopkins. People were like, no, you got to take Chris Godwin. Why? Chris Godwin's got more upside. He's younger than DeAndre Hopkins. This is the exact thing I'm talking about. I love Chris Godwin, but we were looking at the offense. We're looking at 3 mouths to feed. We knew Antonio was going to be coming in, even though it was going to be 8 games. They had added Gronk, a lot of other weapons. We know Tom Brady's willing to distribute the ball. What happened? Yes, he was hurt, but even if you look at the games, Chris Godwin was not hurt. He was never a 24, 25% target guy. He just doesn't have to be. These quarterbacks that have 3 awesome weapons, the beauty is they can throw to whichever one's open. They're not going to force feed just one of the guys because they don't have to. So, again, setting that aside, Tom Brady is part of my quarterback plan. He's a centerpiece to my draft this year. We'll talk about the other quarterbacks. Last year, if you guys were here, I think we pretty much nailed the quarterback plan. We said, hey, when Dak slides to the 8th, you take him. Yeah, he got hurt. When Josh Allen makes it to the 9th or 10th round, you take him. And when Tom Brady gets to the 12th round, you take him. You wanted to own one of those quarterbacks. And if you did that, yes, Dak got hurt, but up until the time he was hurt, you were great. You had a great quarterback, and you didn't have to pay a high price. You didn't have to pay the Kyler Murray price. You didn't have to pay last year's Russell Wilson price. You didn't have to pay the Patrick Mahomes price, and you still were very good and you were competitive. So we'll talk through that again, but just letting people know, a little secret, Tom Brady will be in my article about one of my key players. And again, this year, again, you can get him around 10 or 12. The guy, he's got great weapons. He knows how to play football. I don't know what else you guys want me to say about Tom Brady. But I remember last year, Drake goes, his arm shot. He can't throw deep. And I remember I went and dug into all the deep stats and everything because I had all that access at Pro Football Focus, which was freaking awesome that I get to be able to go look at all that stuff. And I was like, no, actually his deep accuracy is just fine. It's great. You got to look at more than just the receptions, et cetera, et cetera. But here's the thing I love about the end of last year, Drake. It wasn't just that they threw the ball more. They threw the ball more in every single scenario. They passed the ball 68.2% of the time. That was plus 8% versus the first 8 games where you're like, oh, well, they probably just trailed more. You're right. They did trail more, which made them need to throw more. But when you dig a level deeper, every scenario, they threw the ball 67% of the time when the game was close. That means it's under 4 points. That's a plus 2% versus the first 8 weeks. When they had a lead, they threw the ball 60% of the time. That's a lot. Throwing the ball 60% of the time when you have a lead, that's plus 3% versus the first 8 games. Threw the ball 76% of the time when they were trailing. That's plus 5% versus the last 8 or the first 8 games of the season. So getting Antonio Brown, having those 3 options, finally kind of getting the connection going with Gronk. You now get OJ Howard back. Drake, I love the offense. Back to your original question, looking at the receivers, I probably have the Bucs receivers higher than a lot of people, but the reason why is I've got Brady high. I don't see how Brady doesn't throw for over 5,000 yards. I just don't see a way, given the fact that we know Bruce Arians is willing to throw in all scenarios. We know Brady's willing to throw in all scenarios. We've seen it before. We saw it at the end of last year. Tom Brady was just now, Drake, clicking in this offense. And so now you get full on Tom Brady. I've got Mike Evans at 21% of the targets, 62.5% catch rate, 14.5 yards per catch. That's 1,250 yards and 10 touchdowns. That's 270 points in a PPR, 227 points and a half, 184 in a non-PPR or in a Shirley League. Then I got Chris Godwin.
Man. I love that. With those stats, that's underrated.
You just get him in the 4th round. He's just sitting there. It's like, hey, dude, here's Mike Evans. I don't want Mike Evans. He got an upside. Mike Evans doesn't have any upside.
Except for the greatest quarterback of all time who always looks at him in the red zone. They throw to him all the time.
What if Chris Godwin or Antonio Brown go down? It's the same thing that people say, dude, Mike Evans is a stud. Let's just move on. It's like, I'm with you. It's like, I don't even know why I need to talk about this anymore. But if you look at the
fun people to come up and talk about, don't worry about that.
If you got target share over 7 games, right? Week 9 through 16 with Evans, Godwin, and Brown playing, right? All of them together. And this is excluding Evans didn't hardly play at all week 17. They just let him play a few snaps at the beginning of the game, got him out. Here were their target shares: 22% to Evans, 18% to Godwin, 17% to Antonio Brown, 13% to Gronkowski. Brown, you have to discount a little bit. Evans missed the last game, and they were basically trying to get Brown paid. But still, I love Antonio Brown. I think
he had a bonus and all that. Yeah,
he's a value still though this year in drafts. So you heard where I had Evans. Like, I'm not getting all excited. Chris Godwin, 19% of the targets, 72.5% catch rate. So that puts him at 125 targets, 90 receptions, 1,130 yards Drake, 9 touchdowns, 256 points. It's the same place I have CeeDee Lamb. It's the same grade. I put CeeDee Lamb above him because CeeDee Lamb is this young player. We love him. He has this upside, but really, Chris Godwin's not old. They move him inside. They let him play a lot of the underneath stuff. I mean, you got Tom Brady throwing in the ball. See, this is kind of stuff like that I start like looking at. Like Chris Godwin doesn't. What if Antonio Brown gets hurt and Chris Godwin all of a sudden gets to play all the slot snaps, right? Whenever they're in 11 personnel and Scotty Miller goes outside, and then whenever they're in 12 or 21 personnel, Chris Godwin's still on the field on the outside. Then all of a sudden, Mike Evans and Chris Godwin are looking at 23, 24% of the targets potentially each. And so there's upside in a great passing offense. Like, I'm very willing to take Chris Godwin or Mike Evans in the 4th round. Antonio Brown is a value. I mean, he's going 8th and 9th round. I got him at 17% of the targets, 71% of the catch, 71% catch rate. He works mostly underneath. 11 yards per reception, 870 yards, 7 touchdowns. That's 208 points in a 17-game season, 168.5 points, and 128 in a non-PPR. I'm happy to draft any one of the Bucs receivers. If I'm drafting in a best ball, I'm happy to build Bucs stacks. They're not really that expensive to get. One of the easier ways to build an elite stack, in my opinion. You hear a lot of people talk about the Bengals, and I love the Bengals, and they have upside, but like, dude, this is Tom Brady and 3 elite receivers. And I wrote about this last year with PFF Drake. I wrote about it in the preseason. Every time Brady has had 3 targets or more that were really good, like, he has totally just lit things up. And it happened again. And he's going to have that again. And they drafted Jalen Darden. So if any of these guys are banged up, they got an extra guy they can use. They already have – Brady's got a connection with Scotty Miller. They had Tyler Johnson that they drafted. I think Justin Watson got hurt and he's out for the rest of the season. But, I mean, they have depth too. I mean, they've got, for Christ's sakes, they've got Gronkowski, O.J. Howard, and Cameron Brate. Like, they have depth for days. Basically, it's going to be really hard to interrupt Brady's mojo. Yeah. So I'm all over it.
Godwin and Mike Evans in the FFPC going off, 45th to 49th. So they're late 4th, early 5th. You're getting them 2 rounds after CeeDee Lamb. Just saying. All right, let's get into the fun stuff.
Yeah,
here.
So they're like a mid. They're like, actually, that makes them a mid 4th, right?
Yeah.
So you said
late 4th, early 5th.
No, because 48 would be late 4th, right? And a 12-team.
Yep.
League. So
and
they're mid 4th. In a 10-team league, yes, you would buy it. In a 10-team league, yeah. But like in a 12-team league, 48 would be the end of round 4. So you're still a mid 4th though. For a guy last year, Drake, everyone wanted to draft in the 2nd round over DeAndre Hopkins. But now he's old and he's washed because he's a year older and he has no fucking upside. Whatever. All right, let's move on.
If you guys want to know, like, when I talk about all this ADP stuff, right above my computer, I actually went and printed out this draft order cheat sheet so that I can look at it. And if it says like, oh, this guy's going off 96th, I can look at it very quickly and go, okay, that's an 8th round pick. I have a degree in broadcasting, not math. So let's get into this backfield because that's what every jackwagon on Twitter wants to talk about. And Leonard Fournette was a beast in the playoffs with rushing touches of 19, 17, 12, and 16. Also, he caught 18 of his 21 playoff targets. His playoff yards per attempt rushing were nearly a full yard higher than his regular season average. He's back in Tampa on a 1-year deal, and he's going to split time with a guy I was quoted as saying on Twitter should never be drafted ever. Of course, that guy is Ronald Jones. Now, Jones wasn't a total 0, so before you start adding me with Ronald Jones hate, which happened about a month ago, he did rush for nearly 1,000 yards last year. He had 4 monster games, over 100 yards. Runs, he even went for a $192. But when he landed on the COVID list, week 15, Fournette got back in the mix, and that's kind of when things started going south for Mr. Jones. ADP-wise in the FFPC, you can get both around pick 100, and this year the Bucs are going to throw a monkey wrench into it, Dwayne, because they added our old friend Giovanni Bernard as the passing game specialist. So think of him kind of in that James White role. And, Dwayne's obviously much better at predicting this stuff. But if he sucks up by my rudimentary math, 70 plus targets, that crushes Fournette and Jones into PPR, because now they're just battling for goal line and early down, while Gio's in there in probably the 2-minute, the hurry up, all that fun stuff, because he's going to be catching passes. Am I kind of learning anything from you here, Dwayne, with Gio?
Yeah, we're on the same page, and you just hate Ronald Jones anyway. So we're gonna have a super smart dude, also Team Gio, Pat Crane. We're gonna get on as well, and so I'll let you guys debate Rojo. We may Pat may hate us for that, but we'll still love Pat. So yeah, I'm just look. It's not like the price tag is nuts. I mean, you can get these guys in the 9th or 10th round. So here's where I would say, like, I'm okay with like a Rojo. If you're playing best ball, there can be value in him versus taking a handcuff player, right? I don't personally, I don't want to deal with Rojo in a season long.
Nope.
I threw it out there even on Twitter, and it's funny, people get upset with you, but there were actually some good responses. Like, I put out, look, basically what you just said, I don't get it. Like, why are we still messing around with Ronald Jones? Like, what's the deal? And there were some good points, which is it's a great offense. Who knows? Maybe he gets most of the first and second down work. But if that happened and he wasn't splitting any of that extra work with Leonard Fournette, even if Gio got all the passing down work, Rojo would definitely pay off, right, as a 9th or a 10th round pick in an elite offense like that. I just don't trust it, man. The reason why is we know Bruce Arians has basically told us he's not married to any of them. He re-signed Leonard Fournette. I know he didn't get a ton of money, but he signed him to a 1-year deal. You bring in Gio Bernard. We know Brady likes these, having these backs that each have their own role. We know Ronald Jones, like, it's basically like watching Edward Scissorhands when he tries to catch a football. So Jones, literally, to your point, like, he's got to win all the first and second down work. And I still see that being a rotation with him and Fournette. I've given Jones the edge, almost 50, what do I got? Sorry, I'm just looking at the wrong thing. 40, yeah, right at 47% of the carries. So, I mean, he could still be at like 200 carries, Drake, right, for 900 yards and 7 touchdowns. So it's usable. I just don't ever know when I can put him in my lineup.
Exactly.
is my problem. Now, if Leonard Fournette were to get hurt, that's where you could argue, like, man, come on, he's a 9th or a 10th round pick. I'm just not. I guess my biggest thing with Rojo is I'm just not a Rojo homer. I think Ronald Jones has gotten better every single year. I own Ronald Jones in Dynasty. I wish there was a Rojo homer in my league, because I would love to unload, Rojo to that owner. It's never going to happen. I won a championship in that league last year, and Ronald Jones was in my starting lineup, in week 16 when I won the championship. So I'll give him some love and props on that. I don't want to be as harsh as we have been. Just why would you ever draft Ronald Jones? Look, he is in a really good offense. He could take over all the first and second down work. So if you want to take him, you can. I'm not going to be upset at you. I really won't know when I can play him. Basically, like any other Patriots back we've ever known. I just won't know which week I can start him, right? Except for the few weeks where you got injuries, and I know that I can do it. The other thing that I just struggle with, even though Leonard Fournette was a healthy scratch, down the stretch, and I know Ronald Jones got COVID, unlucky shit happens, but the bottom line is Ronald Jones never really came back and took the role back. And yes, he got injured. He was dealing with a finger problem, so we don't really know what they wanted to do. But in the playoffs, they did let, Lenny run with it. So I just think it's going to be too much of a mix-up, Drake. If you look at those games and you exclude the game, and and it's funny because then people want to throw it, well, Rojo got benched for fumble, blah, blah, blah. But they don't want to talk about that. But they want to say, but Leonard Fournette was a healthy scratch. You have to take it all, right?
Here's the thing. Maybe they both stink.
That's maybe they're both kind of shitty, right? And so we just don't know what to do. It's not like we're putting a stamp of approval on either one, right?
Yeah, you're not drafting McCaffrey here, all right?
I will tell you,
and Fournette.
Lenny's screwed, because if Bernard's still on the team, that's what was giving Fournette value, right? Yep. Lenny's screwed, like, period. Because I will agree, if people say, hey, look at the two guys run, Ronald Jones is the better running back on first and second down, I'm really not going to argue, because, I watched it last year and I thought Ronald Jones looked better, right? Who knows? Leonard Fournette may look better this year, but I mean, I will certainly concede that point. Like I'm not blind and I'm not just going to be so stubborn. But
they didn't have to bring him back, but they did.
They didn't have to, right? And they did. But I've still got them really close. I've got Jones slightly ahead. But dude, I got Jones with 2% of the targets. Like that, he's just not going to get any targets. That's 13. I probably have had a smidge low, but still, like he's not probably going to catch 20 balls. So you're getting an absolute zero from his receiving work. So essentially I've got 200 rushing attempts, 900 yards, 7 rushing touchdowns for Rojo. Got him with 51 receiving yards on 8 catches. Fine. You guys are probably laughing at me. You're like 8, like why even count it? Like just whatever, give him 15 in your head, and make it 100 receiving, yards, but no receiving touchdowns. I got Gio Bernard popping in there for 8% of the receiving of targets, 4% for Lenny. I got Leonard Fournette right, just slightly under Ronald Jones in points, but just because I have him getting a little bit more receiving work. But I do have Lenny only getting 35% of the attempts, so that's 149 versus the 200 for Ronald Jones. Not much on the ground for Gio, just more getting used and passing down. My concern becomes Drake that this is like, and it sounds weird, but it's like Leonard Fournette is like the big fat Rex Burkhead that like comes in and takes like every third drive from Ronald Jones, takes every fourth 2-minute series, right? Or long down and distance from Gio. And it's just enough to make this whole thing an absolute cluster. And so if I'm taking anyone, it's Gio late, just because I can get him for free. I've been drafting Gio super late. And I think you'll probably get 2 or 3 games out of him this season where you're like, oh, Gio caught 6 catches for 60 yards and a touchdown, and my other running back was on a bye week, and I'm in a best ball. Awesome. Mm-hmm. I will never be able to tell you when to start Gio Bernard, though, if you're in a season long. I won't be able to predict that for you, so don't count on me for that.
Yeah. All right, last team. Let's hit the San Francisco 49ers. We already talked a bunch about them earlier. All the news out of 49er camp right now is about Trey Lance, but they're saying Jimmy G has never looked better. You know what that means? Jimmy G is going to get traded. Jimmy G's got 2 years left on his deal. It pays him $24 million a year. That could be a sticking point, but very minimal dead cap, which is the opposite of Nick Foles, who has a shit ton of dead cap, which is probably why Nick Foles remains the third string on the Bears. So I put a tweet out and it got a ton of traction. I said, don't leave your draft this summer without either Justin Fields or Trey Lance late. I think that those guys are league winners. And Trey Lance, God only knows. The guy played 1 game a year ago, and it was total BS. It was just a sham to get him some tape. He played at North Dakota State. Who knows what kind of shape the guy's going to be in coming and playing against NFL talent now. But everything you see is just people are like, oh, my God, look at the crazy throws he makes. Let's see when there's a real defense against him, giving him disguised looks, and he's got legit pass rushers in his face. We talked about Trey Sherman versus Raheem Mostert. That's been the hot topic all season. Mostert, obviously, often the injured journeyman. Only 8 games last year for 521 yards. This Sherman pick, it's all about finding somebody that the Niners can count on. Super talented. He was our buddy Matt Waldman's number 1 running back. And he's currently going off in the 6th round, where Mostert is going in round 7. Anything else you want to add about those guys, Dwayne? Jimmy G, Lance, Mostert, Sherman?
No, I think you hit it on the head. And what I love about the upside players that you're talking about is there's not a huge expense. Mm-hmm. I get Trey Lance or Justin Fields, right, between round 12 and 15. 12 if I want to prioritize them. Let's say I miss on Brady or whatever. Or maybe I draft Jalen Hurts, and then I'm worried maybe Deshaun Watson's going to be traded there, and I draft Trey Lance, right? In the 13th, 14th round, whatever the case may be. I have Trey Lance playing 11 of the games and Jimmy Garoppolo at 6. I did have it a little closer, but like with each passing day, like the more I hear and the more I read, I'm just like, Trey Lance he's looking good. And I know it's just training camp, but I just, when you draft a quarterback that high, Drake, and again, I think what Trey Lance can unlock that defenses have to respect with his legs, I don't think he even has to be as good of a passer as Jimmy Garoppolo to beat him out in camp. I just think he needs to be good enough and not make big mistakes, because I think if you look back at that Washington offense under Kyle Shanahan when he was with his dad, with Mike, with Robert Griffin. Look at all the yards they manufactured. And
Oh
Griffin Griffin ended up sucking the rest of his career, right? As they tried to turn him into more of a pocket passer. I think we're beyond that in the league now. I think now it's like, hey, Robert Griffin may still exist. Like if he came into the league today and had
he is still alive
as a rookie, right? Because it would have just been like, oh, we'll just keep doing this, right? Instead of, well, we got to turn him into a pocket passer. Oh, we don't like him. We'll take Kirk Cousins. We're going to put Kirk Cousins in. Don't get me wrong. RG3 has his own issues, but I think Trey Lance has a really good shot at winning the job outright. But like I said, 11 games is where I have it right now for Lance, and I've got it at 6 for Garoppolo. Very willing to your point, take Trey Lance, especially in certain builds, and it doesn't really cost you a lot. I'm not like reaching and going nuts for Trey Lance, but typically you don't have to. Every once in a while you're in a draft where, and you guys know how this goes. You're just in a draft. Maybe you're playing a $5 best ball or whatever, and some person in your league, they just can't stand it. They got to have Trey Lance in the 11th. I'm not going to lose sleep over that, right? I'm just letting it happen, letting it come to me. If they take Lance, I'll take Justin Fields, kind of thing. Trey Sherman, you're right. We already hit on it. I think we've talked about him a million times already. I've only got him at 42% of the carries right now. That's 200 carries, same as Ronald Jones. You may say, yes, that's true. But I think his upside, I think there's a chance, a much better chance of Trey Sherman popping up into the 60% carry range. And if that happens and he becomes the every down back, all of a sudden, you got 10, 12% of the targets as well, which we know Ronald Jones is not going to grow in the passing game. And I just love this, that anybody can go back and listen to, one of a million shows where we've talked about this offense and the scheme and all the things they do. But Trey Sermon's built for this rushing attack. I think it's kind of interesting. I've read these things where last year they wanted to use Tevin Coleman to soften the defense, and then Raheem Mostert was the home run hitter. I actually don't even buy that narrative. I do think there was a rotation, but Tevin Coleman is not someone that beats up the defense and softens them up. If you really dig into the utilization, they were more rotated throughout the game. So either way, what I like is right now, Sermon, at worst case, he's the 1B, and Raheem Mostert is the 1A. I'm putting a bet right now. Sermon's the 1A, and Raheem Mostert's the 1B, and I like Mostert, but I think Mostert's the change of pace. And I think so I would change the narrative the way it was. I don't think that it's, Trey Sherman just is in there to beat up the offense or the defense and, then to let Mostert come in and finish a game. I think what it is Sherman is your pretty much steady dose. And then Mostert's your change of pace here and there that can hit the home run ball for you. So I see those as really being different things. I easily could see Sermon up to 50% of the carries in a rush-heavy offense. I've got him at 202 carries, 909 yards, 8 rushing touchdowns, 26 receptions, 200 yards receiving, and 1.5 receiving touchdowns. I've got Mostert at 146 carries, 700 yards rushing, 6 rushing touchdowns, 35 receptions for 351 yards. Here's what I think about Mostert that people are missing. I think what could easily happen, Drake, is Sermon really gets all the first and second down work, gets the long down and distance work potentially, and you got Mostert running the 2-minute offense. What people forget is Mostert, the year before last year when he was intended to kind of take over, he handled a ton of the 2-minute and long down and distant work in 2019. And so I think that really what we could have here is Trey Sermon as the primary back, Mostert handling most of the passing duty. And the good thing, though, about Sermon in this offense, and where you're getting him, in the 6th, 7th round of drafts, if he's getting all the first and second down work and just enough work on passing downs, essentially, you could be getting you could be getting Josh Jacobs, 2 rounds later. You could be getting David Montgomery 2-3 rounds later than what you would have to draft David Montgomery. You're potentially getting Miles Sanders, because of what we're seeing with Kenny Gainwell. You're potentially getting these backs that you're having to take in rounds, late 3, early 4. You're potentially getting J.K. Dobbins at a 4-round discount. You know what I mean? So I love Trey Sermon, and he's got the right price for me. And I prefer him to Javonte Williams straight up, and I definitely prefer him over Javonte Williams given the price tag.
George Kittle might be the most elite player in fantasy football who's not being talked about at all before drafts. He's now fallen behind Darren Waller at tight end 3. If he's healthy, he's likely the number 1 option in the Niners passing game. And I think he could be a value if he lands to you in round 4 in your fantasy football draft. So let's get into the pass catchers. We've got George Kittle. We've got Brandon Eiuk, who broke out as a rookie. We've got Deebo Samuel, who needs to stay healthy. Give me the rundown quickly on the 49ers pass catchers.
Yeah, draft George Kittle. He's in the same tier for me still as Darren Waller. I know he's been injured. He could easily be the number 1 tight end in all of fantasy football. I am a firm believer in drafting a tight end early this year if you can get Kelsey, Waller, or Kittle. I'm very interested in attaining one of those 3 players specifically. We've talked on the show about Hawkinson and some other guys that we like, even Kyle Pitts, Mark Andrews, but I really want one of those 3 if I can. I'm willing to pull the trigger when I think I need to on George Kittle. I have no problems with him. If you look at Kittle, he's real, man. He's the dude. I mean, there's really no other way to put it. Like the guy, when he plays, he's a target magnet, right? And people are like, oh man, that's just with the backup quarter. No, it's not. It's not just with the backup quarterbacks. It's with every freaking quarterback that plays for the 49ers. They like George Kittle. Guess why? Because linebackers and safeties can't cover him. They're having to deal with play action. It's just, it's not fair. Like having to deal with a guy that's that talented, that athletic. He will continue to be the leading target on the team as long as he's healthy. I've got him for 24% of the targets, 132 targets, 99 receptions, 1,234 yards, 6 receiving touchdowns. I have not shaved off anything for games lost. So I'll let you guys do that. I still got to go back and I'll probably take a couple of games away from him. But really what I care about is his points per game, right? That's the biggest thing I care about when I think about George Kittle, especially now that his price tag has been discounted a bit. I think he's a difference maker for you. He can win you weeks at the position. Brandon Eiuk, if you guys are big fans of Matt Harmon, reception perception, scored really well in that. So this is a guy that, people think is ready to take that next step, right? He's the guy that's potentially, going to really be able to fully harness, what he can do and take over the Emmanuel Sanders role from the year before, but do even more because, as a younger player, the only thing that has me a little, hesitant, and I'm not hesitant. I like Eiuk. I want to get some shares, but I also just like Deebo. And Deebo is not the route runner and all those things as Eiuk, but they just scheme Deebo up so much. And if you look at the games where they were healthy together, it was 2020. It was a 22% target share, for Deebo and a 20% target share for Eiuk. So they slightly leaned to Deebo in that situation. If you look at the games where they were all 3 healthy, the pecking order was Kittle by a good bit, then Deebo, then Eiuk. Now, again, that was early in the season. So things changed. Eiuk grew as a player. He gained more confidence. So I do think if you're drafting between the two, Eiuk is the guy to draft first, just because of the upside, the depth of the targets, those different types of things. But I think Deebo's the one that's going too late. Like this, again, last year, people, until Deebo got hurt, it's like, oh man, I'm taking Deebo in the fifth round. Now you get him in the 8th.
Yeah.
He's a 3rd-year player in a scheme that knows exactly how to use him. As limited as he may be, and he has been working on things, supposedly he's doing better. But the cool thing with Deebo is all these targets around the line of scrimmage, it's a very high catch rate. I've got him at 75% catch rate. So I've got him at 86 receptions for just under 1,000 yards and right around 6 touchdowns. I've got Eiuk really at a similar spot, just under 1,000 yards, but less catches, 75 catches, and it's 6.5 touchdowns. Now, I will say Eiuk, I do believe, has more upside because I think he's got a larger route tree, meaning he can work intermediate, he can work deep, he can do a lot of different things. So he is the guy that if for some reason, like they started to say this is a 2-way offense, Kittle and it probably would be Eiuk, not Deebo, just because I think he's a more diverse player. So that's the argument for taking Eiuk over Deebo Samuel. But I think Deebo is still a really good player, and they scheme him up so much, man. Like he's perfect for their scheme. So I like all 3 of these guys, honestly. I like them all at their ADP. Eiuk is a little bit high for me at ADP right now, but I do believe there is enough upside, and I'm not having to spend a super high pick to get my hands on Eiuk. He's at a spot where I'm comfortable doing it, and I'm going to mix him in. I'm going to own a lot of Deebo Samuel, though.
people forget, and it literally was just 2 years ago, San Francisco was in the Super Bowl with an elite roster. And last year, everybody who has ever worn a 49ers hat or starter jacket had got injured. That's literally what happened last season. They're back. Their offensive line is much improved. And I think San Francisco is going to win that division and be contending again in the NFC. Before we get out of here, I have to say, Shirley Shapiro, I believe, is Jay Moyer's burner account, because twice during the show asked if Jay Moyer could come back on the show and talk running backs. Yes, Shirley/Jay, we will get Jay back on the show at some point. We love Jay. He is a buddy of ours, and we will have him back on. Thank you, everybody, for hanging out with us. Long show, 95 minutes. Check me out this weekend, 3 to 5 p.m., Saturday and Sunday. I'll be talking fantasy with Andrew Erickson on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio, XM 87. And that's going to be a lot of fun. And, man, I think that's Sirius 210, XM 87. I got to get this down, man.
This is your channel.
Yeah, I got to get this down. I've listened to this station for 10 years.
You're about to be on Sirius. Has it set in yet? Like, you're going to be on... You're a SiriusXM radio dude now. I'm
nervous. I'll be honest. When I do this show with you, I'm not nervous about it. We go through and I sit down here for about 2 hours before the show and I really go through everything. And and this is like way behind the scenes stuff. No one's listening 95 minutes into this show. But we had an interview, a conversation with Matt Deutsch, who runs SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio. And he told me, he's like, yeah, a producer's going to get in touch with you. He's going to tell you what you guys are going to talk about this week. And I'm like, yeah, like I want to be the one that comes up with what I'm going to talk about. If I got to talk about it for 2 hours and 4 hours, really, and I'll be doing a lot of talking for this, this show, I need to know what the hell we're talking about. So yeah, I'm nervous. My wife asked me that last night. She's like, yeah, how do you feel about that? I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty nervous because
welcome to the big leagues, Drake.
Yeah, I mean, with you, it's pretty easy. I can just kind of tee it up and go, hey, Dwayne, what do you think about Josh Jacobs? He sucks. And then you can talk about him for 5 minutes. But, when you're doing a radio show, it's different than a podcast. It's more back and forth.
Andrew's really good. So you'll have him. You're gonna do great. And if you ever need your whoopee, just give me a call. Come on, Trey. I'll hop on there with you.
Andrew already told me there's some time coming up, I believe in August or September, where he has a wedding. So I got a feeling you might be co-hosting those days.
I'm down.
So check that out. And big news next week. We got Jack Miller on the show, and might have some breaking news off the top of the show, but keep following us on Twitter at FF Hustle. Go over to the YouTube channel, follow there. Hopefully we can start editing this show down and getting better clips up for you. Shout out to Boeheim's Army, TBT champs. After the seventh try, they won $1 million. So the Syracuse alumni have won it because they went and paid a bunch of guys who didn't go to Syracuse to come actually play for them. So that's about it. Dwayne, thank you, my friend. Let's get out of here.
Talk about that on the air this weekend because people will definitely just tune out.
Yeah, they don't give a crap about 40-year-old Eric Devendorf jumping on tables trying to win $80,000. But I need another pumpkin. Dwayne has got to go get ready for work tomorrow. We will see the rest of you guys here next week on the Fantasy Football Hustle. Until then, remember, folks, to never get out hustled.